Welcome to Creatacast with your host, David Welch. Today's show is essentially the New Year show. New Year, new goals, new writing goals. And that's what I'm wanting to talk about. So this year, I accomplished a lot. I got 3 books out there, 1 poetry book, 1 play, and a series of short fiction, or a collection of short fiction, I should say. Sorry about the cough. But yeah, so I made a lot of headway this year, writing and publishing, an award for my poetry, really got out there this year. Next year, bigger and better. So I'm going to have my poetry book, My Streaming Life, out soon. That'll be my poetry book for the year. My fiction book, Linked, is currently being worked on, and I'm going to get that finalized, hopefully here in the next month or two, because I'm really crunching on it. I'm going to put down probably 20 to 30,000 words in the next week or so, so it'll be a lot of writing, and then I'm going to jump back in and do a lot of editing, and of course, I want to make sure it's a smooth story. So, now, my goal for Creatacast for the new year is to garner 250,000 social media followers. I just want to make this, I really want to make this podcast speak to a lot of listeners. I want my podcast to get out there and touch the lives of writers and those who are writing and those who are engaging in the warfare mentally every day to compete with life and still be creative. Because let's get real. A lot of creative opportunities for kids are going missing. They are being stripped from curriculums at public schools and charter schools. Literature is still heavily taught, but it's taught with a very totalitarian way. Like, we have to meet these wickets, not so much that we love what we do. We just want you to be able to write an effective email. We want you to be able to put together a resume. We want you to be able to, be able to read volumes of tech manuals and do our bidding, and that's how schools are going. I mean, they're stripping music programs, dance programs, creative writing as an extracurricular activity, language programs, you name it. High schools are really getting very barren in the way of humanities and art and mythology. I mean, I don't even think I took mythology until I was in college, and thank goodness it was an available course at the institution that I went to, Hoorah, South Mountain Community College in Arizona. Thank God you had that program. It helped me. It introduced me to Joseph Campbell and changed my life forever. Changed my way of being and my understanding of a lot of things. Love that class. It'll always be with me. So high schools, though, I mean, they're losing programs every day. They're dwindling on band. There's just so many things that are not being afforded to students because of the way education is done nowadays. It's more totalitarian. It's always been a dictatorship. It's definitely not a democracy. Students don't get a vote. They don't get a say. They don't get a choice in the matter. They just have limited options, and they have to go with what they can. And then when they get to college, it's a different story because, then they have options. Then they're able to pursue whatever it is they want to pursue and go after that. But a lot of people are being pigeonholed into degree programs like business and math and technology degrees and stuff because those are where the jobs are. And you'll hear a lot of older generation people like fucking Gen Xers and even older fucking generations tell kids that are their kids, oh, well, we want you to get an engineering degree or become a lawyer because that's where the money is. Or go into healthcare because that's where the money is. Not even asking them what the fuck they want. They tell them, hey, we want you to do one of these limited careers because that's where the money is. Fuck what they want to do. It's just what they, and here's what I see in college. Here's what I saw when I was an undergrad. Fuck, I even saw this as a master's student. You see so many people who are pigeonholed into a degree program, but they get to college and they are finally open to explore themselves. They take a dance class and fall in love with salsa, merengue, and they fall in love with swing dancing, and they are ballroom dancing. They discover with themselves, or they decide, I want to become a capoeira professor. They decide that at that moment in college. They're like, well, I can do this. This is fun. I want to do this. And then they get home to mom and dad, who might be funding part of their education, maybe. And then they get talked back into, we want you to get business administration because you need to take over their family store or whatever the fuck. It's like, no, let fucking kids pursue what they want. And then there's always that argument, if your kid's got a degree in underwater basket weaving, don't cry when they can't get a job. I'm like, first off, if a kid can fucking knit something underwater and basket weave underwater, then they can have a job in the fucking United States Navy as a diver. Fucking A. They can join the military if they're fit enough and they meet the requirements, and they can, go to, become a diver or go to BUDS or EOD or whatever it is that they can do. And the military isn't just an only option, but with your degree, you do have that option to go in as an officer generally and pursue that type of career if they so chose. Or they can become a dive instructor. They don't necessarily need to teach people how to basket weave, but they can do something with their degree. There are dive masters across the world that make crazy money to do what they do. Nobody begrudges them. Nobody says, hey, they can't do what they do. Nobody gives shit to the motherfucker taking philosophy and psychology and become a brain doctor because, mental health is a real thing and it's becoming more and more prevalent. Right? So a few years ago, people were like, well, you're a quack, you're a mind doctor, you just fuck people up, and blah, blah, blah. No, counselors are needed more and more. One thing that a lesson learned from older generations is, after a traumatic fucking incident or something happens to a person, they need to be able to have an outlet. We have discovered that. It only took several thousand fucking years, but it's finally got to the point where, we recognize this as a real thing, and there's no such thing as, mental health is precluded to, or singularly specific to a specific skin tone or a gender or even an income level. Does not fucking matter. People need counselors. People need mental health. Going back to what I was saying, if someone has a degree in creative writing and people sneer at that, check all these fucking entertainment gurus and screenwriters and all that. They generally have degrees sometimes in the humanities. If you're an art history major, and you can't find a job, that doesn't mean you're limited to art history. You can build your own art history portfolio, do your own research, and you might have to be a rogue warrior going out there by yourself into the elements and being a art history journalist or taking people on an art history, walk through life with your YouTube channel. But at least that's a method of you doing and living in what you want to do. I knew a history professor in Rome when I was in Rome to visit. He was a taxi driver, professor at New American University in Rome. On the side, he drove taxi, and he was awesome. He was able to give us a historical briefing and a rundown of Rome as we were visiting all the sites, and he knew where to go. He knew all these great things for us to see and was able to really narrow the only day we had in Rome down to a science. because he was so practiced and he was so learned that he was able to provide us more information, than we generally expected to get on the trip. And it was valuable. I'll always remember that, and I'll cherish those moments. It got me, I think a lot of what we were talking about ended up getting me to read a lot of the Roman and Greek historical fiction. I was explaining to him that I was a huge fan of historical fiction, loved reading it, and then he gave me some authors that he, and explained, hey, these are the real events, these are the authors that, yes, it's fictionalized, but they tell it the best. So, I mean, it's great to get an understanding from somebody who is learned and knows, who teaches a course at a university. But on the side, he drives taxi to earn extra income because, yeah, it's profitable. Just like the lawyer on YouTube who was driving Uber on the side because, yeah, it's extra money. Just because you have skills in another area doesn't mean you are bereft and have the inability to be a champion somewhere else. I know several fighters that have degrees. Several fighters. But their main way of making money is with their hands and doing things. That doesn't make them unsmart. That doesn't take away the fact that they earned that degree. And earning a degree and becoming a scholar, whether it's communications, engineering, physics, whatever have you, that doesn't also mean that there's a fucking job at the end of the rainbow. There's no magical pigeonholed job that you fall into just because you have a degree in physics. There's no research lab guaranteed to you because you have a degree in biology. So, at the end of the day, when you get the fuck out of college, you still have to figure it out. Just because you have an engineering degree doesn't mean you fall into automatic engineering job platforms. So, there are different ways to get jobs with degrees in humanities. You just have to find your way. I know a girl who has a degree in English Lit, but she is working in Hollywood. She actually makes a huge difference. She works, I think, backstage as a stage coordinator or something. She loves her job, makes great money, has a degree in English Lit, and also works on scripts on the side. I mean, how fucking cool is that? I got a buddy who has an undergrad degree in English Lit. Now he's a lawyer. He's gone on, went to law school, and now he's a lawyer, and it's what he does. So, for all you out there in college, or even in high school, if you're listening to this, don't let someone dictate your terms. You're going to find out real quick, hey, when you get to college and your whole dream is to write a book, your whole dream is to become an author, don't let someone rob that from you. I saw firsthand where we had a mathematician in our freaking poetry class who changed degree programs. She earned a double degree. She earned a double major, which is she had a degree in mathematics, went back into school and got another degree, not a master of fine arts, but a creative writing degree with a concentration in poetry. And she's absolutely an amazing poet. So, just because your family wants you to, society might tell you to, if you're going to college to get a degree to fall into one of these pre-made jobs for you, then you're not a critical thinker, you're not somebody who thinks for themselves, and you're always going to be an order follower. I'm sorry, but when you go to college and you find, you're going to find that one professor, that one colleague, or that one fellow student that changes the game for you mentally. Because you're going to have a way you look at the world going in. Coming out, you're going to have a different view of the world because you're going to have international students in your classes. You're going to have students from all walks of life. You're going to have students that are living in their cars. You're going to meet students and teachers that are living in an impoverished situation, but they have a wealth of knowledge to give. You're going to have professors that live in great situations that are probably not even the best of people, much less the best professor. So it's not about what you have and what you've attained. It's about what you can do with the knowledge you have, right? When I left college, I never would have dreamed of being a podcaster. It wasn't even a thing to me. I didn't know what the hell podcasts were when I left college. But now I can't think of anything else I enjoy more than jumping on a podcast and talking about life, talking about my experiences, and reading poetry and reading fiction and reading creative nonfiction and encouraging others to chase their dreams. Now, you don't necessarily need a degree to write a book, but here's the advantage of college. It's not so that you even need the mechanics of English. You get that leaving high school, or at least you should, technically. But the great thing about college is the higher you go, the further you go, the longer you stay, the more you read, the more you learn, the more you have to offer as a writer, right? So if you're always reading books that are third-person omniscient, you finally read that book that's all in first person, or you finally read the Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it's written in a way you don't expect, then you're going to be like, well, hey, there is a different mode of writing. Or you could be that one poet in high school that's always rhymed. This is my situation. This is what I did. I was always a rhyming poet. I was a romantic. I loved poetry. At least what I thought poetry was, right? And then I heard of a guy of Yusuf Komunyaka, and I heard of my fellow students in school read their poems, and I was blown away. It didn't have to rhyme. What do you mean? It didn't have to have a cadence to it, or it did and it didn't rhyme. It had a certain way of being, and I learned about sestinas and soliloquy, and I learned about what a stanza is, and all these things that I didn't care to really delve into in high school, or maybe when I was in high school, I wasn't really tuned in to that part of the lesson when we went over it in English. But when you're paying for something and you're investing in your future, you tend to take something out of every class, despite who's teaching it, despite how you feel the world is treating you at the moment. You're going to want to get something out of every class, every course. One of the college classes that I took that I was very, very happy with taking was a storytelling class. It gave me a chance to tell stories orally. I've never done that before. And I have in the bar scene and stuff like that when I was in college. Of course you tell sea stories, I was fresh out of the Navy, had about 1 million sea stories, so I was armed, ready. I was ready with stories. But when you're given challenges to tell stories that you may not necessarily be prepared to tell, then you discover more about your creativity, right? You learn about what a pourquoi tale is, or a but why, and all these different type of folk tales that you can end up teaching yourself to tell. And then I got into classes like acting and a couple other classes that I took that were just amazing to me, and I found a lot of value in. That's why I started writing plays. I started writing poetry. I've always wanted to write fiction. I knew that going into college, but I never would have dreamed how much poetry would affect me. I didn't realize how much nonfiction would affect me, right? You don't realize that there's a really good story in that, or if it's told correctly, Laura Hillenbrand, that you can touch millions of lives with a very true story, And there are directors and writers that do that. And they've been doing it for years. And essentially what you get from academics is you're tapping into that conversation that other learned people have been having for thousands of years. So you're finally jumping into the conversation. At first you learn the mechanics of getting into that conversation. But once you're in that conversation, you live in it for a while, and you study, you read, you argue, you debate, you challenge, you acquiesce, you do it, whatever it is you do in college, whatever happens, wrong, right, or indifferent, you become a champion of your own success. There are a lot of students that will go to college and, it'll take them 8 years to get a degree. And the reason that is, hey, they've chosen to party and spend money differently than focusing on their studies. Then they run into that Van Wilder moment where, hey, you finally have to get your degree because somebody's going to stop funding you in your party time. So if your mentality is, hey, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to fuck around and it's going to be 100% party time, then you're not going with the right intention. I'm so glad I went when I was 23. I'm so glad I waited. I sowed my oats a little bit. I went out and saw the world and read a bunch and felt the fire and flames of war and all that. I needed that. I needed those experiences going into college to be ready mentally to take on the tediousness of school. It's not just all fun and games. The real academic work is done when you're late at night, you're reading a book you don't necessarily favor, or you're writing a paper you don't necessarily want to write about, or you're, crunching on a math homework that you fucking abhor. Oh my God, I hated math. Believe me, I, to this day, still hate math. But I had to find the value in what I was doing. Otherwise, you don't walk away with anything. You don't gain an understanding. So I created a prompt for myself. I challenged myself as a writer. Well, I want to write a story about a kid who is a math genius. And honestly, that was one of my first fiction stories that was ever published. At that point, I had submitted, 5 or 6 stories, and the only one that got published was my math story. The one that I challenged myself on the most got published. So it's called My First Day of School. If you guys pick up my book, Hell's Waiting Room and Other Stories, you'll find that towards the back of the book. And it's in there. It's one of my first stories that I published. The great thing about the new year, coming up in the new year, is that it's a new chapter in your life. It's a new chapter in your way of being and how you show up to people, where your mentality's at, and for your writing endeavor. So my goals are this. I'm going to finish my poetry book. I'm going to finish my 3 fiction books that I have in my head. I'm working on Linked right now, and I want to get into movie script writing. I really have a passion for film. I love movies. I go to the movies damn near every day if my wife lets me. But I watch movies like it's going out of style. I love watching series. I would be a hog in heaven if I was on a writing team or involved in the writing room with a series like The Flash, or you name the series, Green Arrow, whatever. If I was in on that writing, I'd love it. I'd live in it and I'd dream it and be it. Oh, especially if I wrote an episode for Stranger Things. Lord help me. Oh my gosh, I'd love it. Fucking love that show. And that's the beautiful thing about creatives, is a lot of people will sneer at what you're doing. Oh, how are you going to get mad at or sneer at somebody who has a degree in kinesiology? Can't do it. Can't. A degree in kinesiology is big fucking business. You can go a lot of places with that degree. But how are you gonna sneer at somebody who has a degree in women's studies? It's fucking needed. People who have degrees in women's studies go on to be lawyers. They go on to be prolific writers and thinkers on the topic of gender studies. And if it weren't fucking needed, it wouldn't be a thing, right? If there wasn't an actual need in society for it, I don't believe it would probably be studied. It's like, I would love to see somebody clown somebody who has a degree in marine biology. How dare you? They went to school, they studied, they freaking kicked that degree's ass, and they got the degree. So it's not always about it's not always about what's next. It's living in the moment when you're in college. But yeah, have an idea of what you're going to do next. But also understand that everything that you're preparing to do when you get out of college may not be readily available. So you have to have a game plan. You have to be okay taking a shitty ass job, something that you may not immediately fall in love with, but you can turn around and make it your own, and always work on your projects, always work on your art, right? And they have platforms for artists now. Like, if you're a mainstream artist, I mean, gone are the days where you have to have a gallery to be a successful artist. You can simply have an Etsy page, and then bam, you've made it. If your artwork is on the cover of a book, bam, you've made it. If you do comics for a living, a lot of people will sneer at illustrators and stuff like that, but they'll also read comics like they're going out of style. So don't ever sell yourself short getting a degree in the humanities. Art history, whatever the fuck the degree is, if it's in classical, piano, whatever your degree is in, own that shit. Enjoy it. And then if people are making money doing a different vocation, it's not going without saying that you can't earn a lot of money or get a job or find a way to build your own business by being pigeonholed or allowing yourself to be held back by somebody else's idea of what you need to do with your life. There are already a bunch of motherfuckers and a bunch of things and a bunch of societal institutions that are trying to drive you away from the humanities, drive you away from having a brain, drive you away from being your own entity. Don't let that shit happen. If you're in high school right now, you're listening to me and you're like, fuck, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. That's okay too. That is perfectly O-fucking-K. Start the new year with, hey, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go try this. I'm going to make a goal for myself to achieve something. Now, if you have a clear, concise goal and you constantly work towards that goal, eventually you're going to achieve it. That's just the way our brains work. If our mind is constantly working on something and constantly telling us, hey, this is the direction we need to go, then that's the direction we need to fucking go, and just do it. We do have real factors stopping people or preventing people from getting to their goals. Financial. We have mental. We have so many other factors that are already playing a factor in the development of you as a person. Don't let other people be like, well, you'll never be this, or you'll never be a good doctor, so don't try. You'll never be a good lawyer, so don't try. You'll never be a good writer, so don't try. Especially if you struggle in it. Now, if math comes easy to you, and that's what you want to do with your life, great. But I know a lot of people where math comes easy, but they hate applying that to their business, to what they want to do. They'd rather be a masseuse. They'd rather drive Uber. It is very, very rewarding as an adult to have your own schedule and to do something that's relatively easy and make a good amount of money doing it. There's comfort in that. People like living in that zone where it's just comfortable. They pay their rent, pay their bills, enjoy what they want to enjoy, and nothing is wrong with that. Not a goddamn thing. If you want to dance with another man, if you want to dance with another woman, if you want to sing with another man, if you want to sing with another woman, that is your right too. Do it. Enjoy it and live in it. If you want to, one of the biggest things that I was seeing last night, watching The Voice, Halsey was given a lot of backlash afterwards for her provocative dance. It wasn't even that provocative. It was a dance with another female while she was singing Without Me. I love that song. I love songwriters. Keep doing what you do, because you guys are savants on a different level than I am, and I appreciate you. I'm telling you, music gets me through the fucking day, and music probably gets you through the day. So if your parents are mad at the fact that your favorite artist decided to dance with another woman, so what? I mean, tell them to get their heads firmly out of their prudish ass. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't mean anything. So what? I mean, if they really cared about your influences, they'd keep you in a freaking box the rest of your life. But don't do that to yourself. Branch out of your societal box. You have to get uncomfortable and be comfortable being uncomfortable. And here's what I mean by that. If you go to college and you constantly have an echo chamber of your thoughts and ideas always being right, then you're going to have a rude awakening the one day you discover what you've been taught your whole life is wrong. What you've been taught and told your whole life is not as accurate as you thought it was. And it doesn't have to be theological. It can be very, very, very practical. Like, a lot of people just assume parents have a working knowledge of how to be a parent right out the gate. No, it's a village. People come out of the woodwork a lot of the times to help new parents. And that's great. But there are a lot of people who don't get a lot of help. And there are a lot of young women and men out there making a lot of mistakes right now. And they're starting a family too early, but that is on them. Okay? Just make sure if you're these young men or women out there and you're starting a family, be prepared to take care of a baby. Be prepared to take care of a child. And the only preparedness that you can be is just ready and willing to help. Ready and willing to act in the best interest of your baby, of you and your spouse, you and your boo, or whatever you want to call them. So whatever creative avenue or academic degree you pursue, have clear goals in mind. Have a 5-year plan. Have a plan of action to get to where eventually you want to be. That's why some people, some of the richest people in our country, have dropped out of school. They dropped out of college because they already had a clear goal in mind of where they wanted to end up. They had a clear, defined path to success. They took it and they were successful. They risked. They ventured. And you're going to learn that term in college. You're going to learn that term in high school, hopefully. To venture, to risk, to put yourself out there. And that's okay. If you get booed off the damn stage, so what? Come back and kill it next time. If you have a dream right now and a lot of people are telling you you're funny, they say they think you should be in comedy, be motherfucking in comedy. You probably funny as fuck. Don't turn that gift you have into something that you're ashamed of. Because other people don't believe comics make a lot of money. Tell that to Ron White. Tell that to Bill Engvall. Tell that to Jeff Foxworthy. Tell that to, Bernie Mac when he was alive, or any other high-level comedian. John Leguizamo. Now, he went from comedy to movies, film, making a killing with film. If your dream one day, and you're in college right now, and your dream is to not just be a stage actor or a stage developer or whatever it is you do, but you want to be in front of the film one day or write the most beautiful masterpiece when it comes to scripts, do it. Don't let other people get in your way. I mean, I still love the story of Sylvester Stallone. He had this script, he wrote it, stayed up in a dark room and crunched through the script and wrote it and spent a lot of time on it, and then he made his masterpiece, stuck to his guns, and in his negotiation for the script, he kept him as the lead actor. They wanted Robert Redford to come in and play Rocky, and he decided to say, no, this is what I'm sticking to. I want this. So they're like, okay, we're going to give you this really small budget. Here you go, make it work. And he did. He made it work very well. And next thing you know, Stallone's in his 70s and one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. That's just the way it goes. You got Chris Pratt, when he was a young man, living in his goddamn van, trying to go to all these different studios, trying to make it big. Yeah, you got Steven Spielberg, sneaking into studios to make it big. I mean, the list goes on and on of people taking risk and being successful. Yes, people fail first. People fail a lot at first. That's okay. Same thing with writing. Just because you're not ready in writing now doesn't mean you won't be in 5 years. Doesn't mean you won't be next year. Doesn't mean you won't be in 4 months from now. But make it your mission to learn your craft. Make it your mission to be a bestseller. And if you never ever get to that echelon, but you meet a lot of other goals on the way, so what? Great, fantastic. Keep doing what you do, but don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't achieve what you want to achieve with your goals, with your writing goals especially. This this is a new year. This is a new you. This is a new way of being. This is how you're going to present yourself to the world. If you're afraid of, well, what if people reject me? What if people don't like my writing? So what? What if that one person what if that one person reads your work and it changes their life? What if what you wrote prevents somebody from jumping off of a goddamn bridge or throwing themselves in front of a train? That one sweet love poem you wrote, that one poem you wrote from the heart when you had your heart wrecked, and how you were going to overcome your feelings, or you were going to have that suicidal thought, but you overcame it. Maybe that's how somebody else wins. Maybe you got a very relevant short story to their situation. Maybe they love your work purely because they like living in that zone where they feel alive or they feel depressed. Some people like living in that mode. Some people love being scared. That's why we have successful horror writers. Dean Koontz, Stephen King. I mean, if people love living in that fantasy realm, some people like living in, different genres, and you don't have to be a sick, twisted individual to come up with all that stuff. You just have to be very hurt and in pain. Maybe you long for something you can't have. Write about it. I mean, don't let other people, like I said, detract from your success. Don't let them take away from what you're going to be doing in this next year. If all you ever get done in this next year is learn and hone your craft, then you are still successful. Joseph Campbell once, locked himself away for 5 years and did nothing but read and study and write. And then he came out 5 years later with his completed, with a book called A Hero with a Thousand Faces. And that book is the product of 5 years of scholarship, 5 years of reading and hiding away. And if you've ever heard a lecture from Joseph Campbell, ever hear or get a chance to hear him speak on YouTube, please do so if you have not. That way you can really understand how learned this man was and where his frame of reference was when it came to the everyday life. His observations made you very happy. Don't ever discredit someone's interest in political science, because they may be our ruler one day. You never know. They may be at the top of the heap. Don't discredit someone's passion for whatever it is that they study. Just know that if you're a writer, but you're also a mechanic, that's okay too. My grandfather, like I said, I said this last podcast, I didn't know my grandfather wanted to write books. I didn't know he was a creative writer. I didn't know anything like that. I didn't even know my Uncle Paul was a prolific reader in high school. I didn't know. There's a lot of things I really did not know. And when you look at the trajectory of their lives and how they are and where the way they acted, it makes sense now. It does. Because they were able to tap into realms of hilarity, tap into realms of courage and strength that you would think is just inherent in some of it. No, they learned it too. Okay? It is courageous to be that one person at a coffee shop reading your poetry, or entering your first slam poetry contest, or reading your work of fiction to a crowd. It takes courage to do these things. It takes courage to get your work out there. So be courageous this new year. Get your work out there. If you have stuff in the basement, it's ready to go. Get it out there. I know you're saving it for a rainy day, but today it's raining, so get it out. Let the sunshine beat on your words. You could be the next J.K. Rowling. You could change the whole landscape of literacy as we know it. Could. You very well could. You could be Lucy Hawking and turn science and astronomy into something beautiful and fun. You can do it. Be out there, be in it, live in it. This new year, I want your submissions. Please, for the new year, give me submissions. So send your submissions to me. And here's what I'm asking for. I want this to be very clear. I want up to 10 pages of work from you. I want you to write, I want you to submit your poems. I want you to submit your fiction work. I want you to submit your creative nonfiction. I want you to submit your scripts. I also, if you've wrote a poem, I want the words, but if you want it read from your voice, then please record it and send it to me. That way I can read it on the show. I want to make the digital magazine a real possibility for people. I want people to submit their work, get it in. That way we can put it in the digital magazine and get it read on air. Now, of course, there's going to be a selection process. Of course, even though you've submitted, you may not get picked, and that's okay. Keep submitting. It's a weekly thing. I have a show every Friday. Every Friday, there's going to be a show. Every Friday, I'm going to try and read somebody else's work on my podcast, of course, with their permission. I don't care if it's been published. I don't care if it's not been published. I don't really care. I want your work. I want your permission to be able to read it on air and get it out to the world and have people hear it. Now, like I said, if you don't like my crummy voice, then you really want to record yourself saying it and get it out there. You might be the Morgan Freeman voice for the next generation. Who knows? Your voice could have a sweet cadence that everybody just loves to listen to, and you can find yourself with a lot of fanfare. It happens. Okay? Don't cut yourself short. Be poetic. Be courageous. Be the lion heart that you know you are, and write. Deliver something great. Study. Get into the nitty-gritty. If you're going into school for the spring semester, come in with new vigor. Read everything you can possibly read. Have longer conversations with your teachers, your professors, and engage them. Ask them questions. Force them to, to meet you on that level where they know your trajectory is going to college. Your trajectory is going wherever the hell it's going to go. Okay, be a man or woman on a mission. Okay, be on a mission. Be a person on a mission. Be someone striving to reach that next echelon. Whether it's in your physique or physicality, that's okay too. If your dedication this next year isn't with writing, isn't with reading, but it's on your health, that's okay too. We need you healthy. We need your mind strong. So, in order to have a healthy mind, read. Put your thoughts on paper. And lift and grow and be successful. And tune into Creatacast every Friday. And the show is going to be generally 2 p.m. Central Time. And that's the goal for next week. And I really want to read somebody else's work. So send your work to dwelch9627@gmail.com. Again, that is D as in Delta, Welch as in Welch's grape juice, 9627@gmail.com. So Delta, Whiskey, Echo, Lima, Charlie, Hotel, Niner, 627@gmail.com. Again, I can't wait to hear back from you guys. I really would like your submissions. Put it in a Word document or PDF, Times New Roman, 12-point font. And I really hope to get your work and your submissions. That way we can get the show going for Friday. You guys have a great rest of your day. Have a happy new year. Enjoy those new chapters. Become your new self and take over.